There's a global mental health puzzle that has perplexed researchers for decades. It's called the gender paradox in suicide, and it reveals something crucial about how men and women experience mental health crises differently. So here's the paradox. Worldwide, women attempt suicide more often than men, usually 2 to 3 times, but men die by suicide at least 2 to 4 times higher than women. So the question is, how can this be? Today's video is diving into the science, the psychology, biology, and the social factors behind this troubling pattern, and what we can do to prevent it and understand it better. So let's start with the numbers. According to the World Health Organization, in 2016 the global suicide rate for men was 13.7 per 100,000 population, nearly double the rate for women at 7.5 per 100,000. In the United States, the gap is even wider. In 2023, men died by suicide at a rate of 22.8 per 100,000 population, almost 4 times the female rate of 5.9. The United Kingdom shows a similar pattern of 17.4 for men versus 5.7 for women. 4 out of 5 suicide deaths in the UK are male. Across the world, roughly 2/3 of all suicide deaths are men. But here's where the paradox deepens. Studies consistently show that when women make more suicide attempts, they experience higher rates of depression and anxiety, the very conditions most closely linked to suicidal behavior. Women are more likely to report suicidal thoughts and to seek help. So why do men die more often? The answer now lies in 3 interconnected factors: intent, methods, and help-seeking behavior. First, on intent and lethality. Research suggests that when men attempt suicide, they often act more with stronger intent to die. Men tend to be more impulsive and aggressive when in distress, and are more likely to misuse substances, all factors that increase lethality. Even when men and women use the same method, men have higher odds of dying. This suggests a deeper intent behind male attempts. Second, the methods gap. The choice of method matters enormously, a very crucial factor. Men overwhelmingly choose highly lethal methods such as firearms, hangings, jumpings from height. In the United States, over 60% of male suicide deaths involve firearms compared to 35% for women. Women often use poisoning or overdose methods with low lethality rates. Nearly 30% of female suicide deaths involve poisoning compared to just 7% for men. This difference in methods partially explains why male suicide attempts, though fewer in number, result in more deaths. Third factor, the silence of stigma. Here's where the pattern becomes a critical difference. Help-seeking behavior. Women are far more likely to seek emotional support or mental health treatment when distressed. They are socialized to express vulnerability and communicate their pain. Men face the opposite pressure. Societal norms about masculinity, such as stoicism, self-reliance, toughness, discourage men from admitting emotional distress and mental health struggles. Though this does also affect women, who can oftentimes be criticized of just being hysteric and pointlessly worried about. This isn't unique to men, but it's more apparent in men and more deadly for men. The stigma of asking help can feel overwhelming. Many men delay seeking support until their crisis reaches an extreme point, or they don't seek help at all. This means women are more likely to attempt suicide, but also more likely to receive interventions before a fatal outcome. Men, meanwhile, suffer in silence until the crisis becomes lethal. Now we're moving into gender roles and expectations. Men and women face different pressures based on traditional gender roles. Men are often seen as economic providers, so unemployment, financial strain, and divorce hit particularly hard. European research found that unemployment and being single were significant risk factors for men, but not for women. The loss of a job isn't just financial for many men, it's a loss of identity, purpose, and social status. When men feel they failed in their provider role, the psychological toll can be devastating. Meanwhile, women's stronger social ties to family, friends, and community, though this is just generally speaking, may act as a protective buffer. Though women certainly face their own stressors, as mentioned before and noted, of being told that they're being hysterical, of simply toughing it out and enduring it, and including caregiving burdens and interpersonal violence, their support network often provide a safety net that men lack. Now we're moving into communication differences. There's also a fundamental difference in how men and women communicate their distress. Young men often communicate suicidal intent later and more ambiguously than women. By the time they signal distress, the crisis may already be severe. Women, on the other hand, tend to express their struggles more openly, creating more opportunities for intervention. No, this is just, again, generally speaking, every case is unique and different. This earlier communication can be life-saving. It allows for family, friends, and professionals to step in before an attempt becomes fatal. Now, if you were to take this and look at the global picture, interestingly, these patterns vary across cultures. In most high-income countries, the male-to-female suicide rate is 3 or 4 to 1, but in some parts of Asia and Africa, the gap narrows significantly. In a handful of countries, including Bangladesh, China, and Myanmar, female suicide rates have historically approached or even exceeded male rates. These exceptions are driven by unique cultural and social factors, including gender-based violence, restricted access to resources, and cultural practices that particularly burden women in those societies. This variation tells us something important. The gender paradox isn't purely biological. It's deeply shaped by culture and social structures to which we, men and women and others, interact with. So now let us move a bit into that biology area and beyond. Do hormones or brain's chemistry play a role? Research suggests that women may be more vulnerable to mood disorders and anxiety disorders due to specific brain chemistry and hormonal fluctuations. Studies have found that female brains show different serotonin receptor patterns which can affect stress response. Monthly hormonal cycles, pregnancy, and menopause can all influence mood and may contribute to higher rates of depression and anxiety in women. But there is no simple biological explanation for the gender paradox. Some researchers have speculated about testosterone's role in male aggression or impulsivity, but the evidence is mixed, controversial, debated, and inconclusive. The truth is that biology, psychology, and social environment are deeply intertwined with each other, and separating them is challenging. What we do know is that while biological factors can certainly contribute to sex differences in mental health, the social and psychological mechanisms appear to play the larger role in explaining why men die by suicide more often. Now let's focus on solutions and hope. Understanding the gender paradox isn't just an academic exercise, it's guiding real-world prevention strategies that are life-saving. Gender-tailored prevention, such as mental health campaigns, are not specifically targeting men through male-friendly channels. Programs like Canada's Heads Up Guides and the UK's Campaign Against Living Miserably focus on reducing stigma and promoting help-seeking among men. These campaigns use language and imagery that resonates with men, meeting them where they are at, rather than expecting them to conform to traditional therapy models. Healthcare providers are being trained to recognize that depressed men may present differently, showing anger or withdrawal rather than sadness. The goal is to catch warning signs earlier before men reach a crisis point. For women and girls, prevention focuses on early intervention and support. School programs train teachers and peers to recognize suicidal behaviors and thoughts, since girls more often communicate their distress openly, but again, mixed and unique for each circumstance, country. So the emphasis is on strengthening existing support systems and ensuring that attempts receive immediate effective intervention. Second approach is means restriction, which is a crucial strategy to limit the access to lethal means. Policies that restrict firearm access or promote safe storage can disproportionately reduce male suicides given men's preference for firearms. In healthcare settings, providers can limit the quantities of medication prescribed, reducing the risk of impulsive overdoses, a method more commonly utilized by women. These interventions have a significant potential to work and have been shown to be effective. Countries with stricter gun controls generally have lower suicide rates with the use of a firearm. Safe storage campaign laws have been shown to reduce suicide deaths. When you reduce access to lethal means, you buy people time, and time is the thing that can be life-saving. Now a comprehensive approach is needed. The insight is this. So it's simply to break it down in a very summary format, you can say, is men's suicide and women's suicide have different drivers, so our interventions must be tailored accordingly. We can't use the same approach for everyone and expect it to work. National suicide prevention strategies around the world now explicitly incorporate gender considerations. The U.S. Surgeon General plans, the CDC's initiatives, and England's 2023 to 2028 suicide prevention strategy all highlight the need for gender-sensitive approaches. This doesn't mean dividing our efforts or caring about one group more than the other. It means recognizing that effective help looks different for different people. So now, as a closing, the gender paradox in suicide is a stark reminder that mental health isn't a one-size-fits-all. Men and women experience distress differently, seek help differently, and respond to interventions differently. By understanding these differences, not to divide but to better serve everyone, we can create more effective prevention strategies, we can strengthen the support systems that help women survive, and we can save lives. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it to be an informative guide on understanding the gender paradox in suicide. Thank you.